We'll start then.
3, 2, 1.
You ready, Gary?
Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Remember, none of that stuff can show up in our little funny bit there that we were talking before.
No, I literally just hit the record button.
I was working on cool names and everything.
Oh, there's my list. I got my list.
I was gonna.
Did you ever see the Northern Bedford name we came up with?
Yeah.
Griffin. Is he like a really good student?
He's a pretty good student, yeah.
Yeah, because I just said he could be like an English professor at St. Francis or some kind of English literature. Oxford. Yeah.
I was gonna.
Ivy League.
I was gonna come in with because I didn't think you were here. And
yeah,
I really
I'm on vacation
I
tomorrow.
really could have replaced you. I had all kinds of.
I'm gonna say, Rachel, I need to tell Gary to pull back, and I call play on the side.
We need to do the new graphic of me and Gary in the photos.
And when I come up with a name, he'd be like, "This is a great segment."
Oh,
Yeah.
This is a good segment. I like that. Yeah, next year when I go back to covering football, now that my sons will be graduate, I'll say, Gary, can I call play since I let you do This episode is sponsored by UPMC Altoona Elite Orthopedics. UPMC Altoona Elite Orthopedics and the UPMC Sports Medicine Concussion Program are proud to support youth sports across our region and proud to sponsor the high school football preview show on the Mirror TV YouTube channel. To learn more about their board-certified orthopedic surgeons, their specially trained concussion management experts, and the wide range of orthopedic conditions they treat, visit upmcaltoona.com/ortho. To schedule an appointment in one of their offices in Hollidaysburg, Ebensburg, or Bedford, call 814-889-3600. That's 814-889-3600. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Week 10 of the high school football season on Mirror TV on the YouTube channel. Right off the bat, you can tell right away we have a special guest with us. First, we got Mike Boydum, our All Everything High School beat reporter. Joining us, our first guest, I think, of the season, Garry Black, head football coach at Northern Bedford. My name is Scott Franco. I'll be your host again, and before we start talking about the games, we got stuff. Gary brought us stuff. And we're going to let him do the big surprise. Gary's into the spirit of the show, so we're doing the big reveal here. We don't have our box in.
Sorry, there's no hat, but I was hoping this might be a little better.
That's all right, and we're allowed to keep it. I mean, you're not going to leave with it.
No,
like after the camera goes off, Gary's going to go, I got to take that back before Batesel yells.
Hey, we have 3 ICC helmets now. We could do like matchups.
Be nice if a mid-pen team would send us a helmet or a Mountain League team would send us a helmet, but you know. That's all right, but thank you, Coach. We appreciate it. We're actually going to put it here and centerpiece it. And right off the bat, we'll let Mike open up with some of the questions we want to talk to Gary about because it works into the games that we're covering this week that Mike wants to highlight because Coach Black's played these teams. Go ahead, Mike. What's the first one?
Well, we talked about it at the beginning of the year about how Northern Bedford had just a really tough schedule at the beginning of the season. And you talked about how it was going to make you guys better, and now you've won 5 straight games. Can you just talk about how that stretch helped you guys out?
Yeah, I mean it was a really difficult stretch up until last week. Bellwood was the first one to end up losing out of that group, and they lost to a good Junior Valley team. So it's one of those things that's what you hope. You hope if you're going to play those tough games that they're going to make you better, and I think you want to play those tough games early rather than late. Because if you play it early, you get the opportunity to rebound from it, which we've been able to do with the wins now. So you feel a lot better going into the end of the season. Had those been our games week 8, 9, and 10, they could really put a damper on maybe how you're feeling. You could go in with a really good record and then potentially have lost those same 3 and enter the playoffs on a kind of what you would feel like is a downward spiral. So
how'd you keep your spirits up? Because it's 1-3. you've got kids that play basketball, that wrestle. I mean, they can start saying, "Oh, geez, well, I guess we can get ready for the winter sports." But you had to keep up because I got to think in the back of your mind, you and your assistants knew that you were better than a 1-3 team.
Yeah, well, that's what we talked about. We're better than a 1-3 football team, and you take it 1 week at a time. I know Coach Franklin says it, and people probably think it's cheesy, but there's nothing you can do about the future or about the past. You just play the game that's in front of you, and we knew that first four would be difficult. Including Southern Huntingdon, who now sits here at 6-3 and just knocked off Berlin. So that was also in that stretch. That was the first four games for us. Southern Huntingdon, Cambria Heights, Windber, Bellwood, and the team just. I know they're all three that beat us. They're all three AA schools, and this is not a knock on Curwensville, but when Curwensville got off the bus, it felt like we were playing a team that looked like us again. That's how the stretch felt. Like there's a reason those teams going into last week were all still undefeated. Like they're not just good for around here. I think they're all pretty good at the state level. They're all good, tough, physical football teams.
Bellwood has so many numbers for I mean, you get how many do you have? They have like 55.
Oh, we have over 50 on our roster this year.
Okay.
So we had the numbers. It was just their guys up front from all three schools were just really, really good.
Well, you have replaced a lot of skill players this year, but your defense has really. I mean, if I told you before the season that you're going to win 2 games in which you scored 7 points in both those games, you'd probably be pretty happy with that. I mean, talk about how your defense has really kept you in these games this year.
It's obviously been huge for us. Even in that stretch. Now Windber, they stuck us pretty good, but we played pretty good defense, I thought, in a lot of the games. And, that's something we've always been proud of at Northern Bedford is our defense and trying to put together what we hope is a good group. Now this year, because of that run, it doesn't work out for us, but we always like to compete against ourselves, too. The Altoona Mirror, you guys published the rankings and who's allowed the least amount of points per game and stuff. We are always trying to strive to be in that top 5 because if you're there, you're winning football games.
Yeah, right.
And winning a game 7-2 and a game 7-6 shows that what they talk about all the time, like defense wins championships. Defense is important. We stress it, and it's allowed us to win a couple football games that a team that didn't play good defense might not have won.
And you also had to deal with the loss of Coach Reed too, along at the beginning. I mean, and it's a smaller school, so it's not like a big school where you have like 12 coaches and everybody. You have a small coaching staff, and those kids knew him. You had to deal with that going into what? Wasn't it the Bellwood game too? I'm trying to remember who you were playing that week.
It happened going into Bellwood week. It's one of those, that was one of those things that's just so unfortunate, and it hurt a lot. It had a big impact on our team and our community. And I don't know, you just can't really overstate what it means to the kids to lose an adult who's been close to them. It's not something that they experience very often. So the start of the season, the 2021 season, was very difficult for us. But at the end of the day, now that we sit here at 6-3 heading into week 10, it may be the most rewarding season that I feel like I've been a part of for a while too. Just because the wins end up feeling a whole lot better after you deal with adversity. And I know, the 3 losses, a loss of a coach, there was a lot of stuff piling up on our program. And to come out of that and start to win games and then get on a roll and beat Juniata Valley, who's ranked at the time in the top 10 in the state, to beat them, it was just, as we were building, it just showed we tried to tell you guys at the beginning of the season, we're a good football team, regardless of how things go. We'll just keep going 1 week at a time and see what happens for us.
Was everybody mad that we didn't pick you guys the week of the Juniata Valley game? I wonder if coaches sit there and think about it. Because my brother John always sits there and says, "Oh, I don't read the paper." I think coaches do read the paper. So
I might have told our kids nobody picked us. I don't know.
Hey, and last week, big win against Tussey Mountain, and you'll obviously be playing them again for the district championship. How do you keep the kids focused on playing Mount Union this week?
Well, the 1 week at a time idea that we talk about, and then we do have a lot of seniors on our team, and this week's senior week. It's going to be senior night, so I think it's pretty easy to keep on task. That's a team that's won some football games. They've got some skill. They struggled last week against Claysburg, and Claysburg did a really good job against them. So I know our kids are going to be confident going into it, but that's the focus. We can't do week 11 till week 11. So I look forward to that and until we get through week 10.
Let me introduce this game, and then you and Mike can tell. Because are you allowed to pick games? Not that we're encouraging other high school coaches to pick games, but I think this would be fun because we never have somebody in there. Windber, Cambria Heights, you've played them both. I gotta think you've seen them at least and everything. 8-0 versus 9-0. This game's at Penn's Manor it's the Appalachian Bowl. Somebody forensics can get hold of me later. But anyways, who do you like, and then who do you like?
Well, the question is Cambria Heights is are they going to be able to run the ball against Windber? Because that's what they do. I know in your game against Cambria Heights, it was right there, and you guys had a turnover right before halftime that really let the game get away from you a little bit, and then they had a long drive to open up the second half there. Do you think that they'll be able to do that type of stuff against a Windber team that obviously has a lot of talent?
Well, I know that Cambria Heights size-wise matches up fairly well with Windber. And I think for what they're going to be trying to do is, can they stick with what their game plan is? How long can you stick with that? Because if Windber jumps on you, you can't stick with it, and then if you have to start throwing the ball. So I think something that's actually worked for us in the Southern Huntingdon game and the Junior Valley game, if Cambria Heights can get the first score on the board, then it just lets you feel a lot more comfortable. They can start to play defense and feel like we don't have to change what we're doing because you're playing three opponents. They're playing a team that's averaging over 50 points a game. So I think for Cambria Heights, what they're going to have to do is stick to the game plan, be able to run the ball. That's what we hope to do, but it's easier to say than to do. The Windber team is outstanding.
And in our next game, again, two teams that you'll be familiar with, Southern Huntingdon 6-3 at Junior Valley 7-1. Junior Valley coming off of that big win now. And as a coach, sometimes you worry how teams are going to react after they have a huge win.
Well,
where do you see this game go?
Is Junior Valley going to learn their lesson? Because, I mean, maybe that happened to them when they were playing Northern Bedford the week before. They knew they had the Bellwood game coming up, and they lost that one 7-6, and maybe you don't want to let this carry over in the wrong way. And they have a tough game. Southern Huntingdon is a good team, and they can throw the ball. Myers had, I think, he may have broken it since then, but he had broken a record of completions against Northern Bedford in the first week at Southern Huntingdon. They were able to throw the ball really well, and that's something that they didn't have to worry about too much with Bellwood. Bellwood doesn't throw the ball as well as Southern Huntingdon. So it'll be an interesting matchup, but it is at Juniata Valley. I'm sure those kids are wanting to win this one. They have a chance to possibly tie for the ICC title. What do you think about this matchup?
So one of the things that I think people are missing out on around here, because you just don't see it, is how good Nate Myers from Southern Huntingdon is. He's a physical specimen. He's put together. He can run. He passes the ball. There was a game a couple weeks ago where he had, I think it was like 250 yards passing and 200 yards rushing. The amount of offense that young man accounts for is crazy. He is really, really good, and he has some pieces around him. So it's one of those things where against us, Junior Valley couldn't put points up. They got the one touchdown. They got one score. You have to put points up against Southern. Southern's going to score. I think that if it turns into a shootout, it would be a game that would be pretty fun to watch. I know that much. But Juniata Valley runs the ball a little better from the running back position, and then Southern Huntingdon runs the ball probably just as well, but it's the quarterback that takes the carries. So I think that's going to be a really interesting game on Friday night down in Juniata Valley.
Our next game, and Gary said he's just going to listen to us, and Mike and I are going to fight back and forth in this one. Altoona 4-5 at State College 4-5. I think I officially in the paper this week, you'll see that I feel bad. I'm finally not picking Altoona anymore. I kept believing in them. Thought they'd beat Central Dauphin. Thought they'd beat who did they just play this past week that they lost to? Carlisle. So I'm not picking them. I'm picking State College because I think State College is going to be mad. Whereas the thing Mike hates when I always say that State College lost that District 6 championship game last year to them, and I think a lot of those kids remember that. I'm picking Altoona to lose at State College, but I think you probably...
Well, I'm just confused because I watched last week's show when I was in Montana, and I saw you look right at that camera and say that Altoona was better than State College.
They were, but then they lost
One
to
week?
Carlisle. They lost to Carlisle.
1 week?
Thought that, I know. Isn't that bad? Well, hey, 1 week ago, everybody likes Penn State. Thought they were going to beat Illinois.
He's
And then
waiting to get that in.
In 1 week, everything changed. But so you think Altoona has a chance in this?
Well, Altoona obviously has a chance. I mean,
I'd like to be wrong, but I don't think I'm going to be. Go ahead.
they've played well in spurts, but if you remember, Ethan Straub hasn't been playing the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, he
so
makes a difference, yeah.
That makes a difference.
Do we know if he's playing?
Both defensively and offensively.
Yes.
Now, I don't know whether he'll play this week because there's a good chance State College, will play them again for the district title. They might play 2 weeks in a row here, but Ethan Straub on the field makes a big difference for
yes.
Altoona.
Good linebacker, good running back. And then our last game we're going to look at here before we do our quick hits. BG 6-3 at Bedford 8-1. I mean BG obviously, but Bedford just seems to be on a roll. I mean I see BG scoring a couple touchdowns, but I just think Bedford's offense against BG.
Well, the pressure's off BG a little bit because they've kind of secured a top 4 seed there, and this is kind of just to get ready for the playoffs. They're going to have a bye in the first round, and it's a good challenge. It's kind of like what we talked with Garry before about, this is a great team they're playing against, and the consequences of losing aren't that huge. Just like they weren't when they lost their 3 games earlier, but they can get much better. Obviously, I know you haven't played them, but you probably have seen Mercury Swaim. He's a very talented player, and I'm sure that playing against him would be a good thing for any team as long as it wasn't in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it's great preparation for Bishop Guilfoyle going into the playoffs. And one of the things that happens in the playoffs is you can throw the records out the window. They don't mean anything anymore. And if Bishop Guilfoyle wins, they're 7-3. If they lose, they're 6-4. But I think for a lot of people, they'll probably still be the favorite in single A because kind of like with what our schedule was, Bishop Guilfoyle was playing Bedford and Richland and these teams in the Lower Highlands. It's a lot different. So it's a good matchup for them right before the playoffs just to kind of get ready. I'm sure it's going to be a playoff atmosphere for both schools.
To go to our quick hits now, so where Dan's going to slide our quick hit sound effect across. Since we got Coach here, let's go to the ICC tiebreaker thing first. The ICC tiebreaker November 3rd meeting, tell them what that's about.
Well, what I've heard so far, I talked to Charlie Birch, the Bellwood AD, and I talked to Jeff Bates, the Northern Bedford AD today, and it hasn't really been decided. It's supposed to be based off of losses, but Northern Bedford's played a full schedule. Glendale has Bellwood has a forfeit win over. Bellwood has a forfeit win, and then Junior Valley has a couple forfeit wins, and they don't have even amount of conference games. So it's kind of like a different situation than usual years.
So as of right now, there's 3 teams tied for first, right?
Yes, if they all win this week,
Gary's team, Bellwood,
and Junior Valley, if they all win this week, it's going to be a 3-way tie, and they haven't really decided yet whether they're going to split it 3 ways, whether they'll go to point differential, or how it's going to be. But hey, this could all be a moot point because Southern Huntingdon Junior Valley, that's going to be a competitive game. So
if Southern beats them, then it just comes down to Bellwood and us to be at the top, and Bellwood beat us head-to-head, so they'd be the ICC champs.
There you go. And then our second quick hit is the Lindsley School is playing at Holliesburg, and I looked it up. It's a private school. It's all boys. They're called the Cadets. It was founded in the 1800s by some guy I think named Jonah Lindley, but I don't know if he played football back then. But they're 5-4. They play a schedule all over Kentucky, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Maryland. They're playing Holliesburg, which finally got to 500 last week. Have you found out anything about this Lindley?
Well, I talked to Coach DeLatre, and he said basically that they're a private school that's not part of like the West Virginia State playoff system. So this is their playoff game for Hollidaysburg. So they're going to be throwing everything they have at Hollidaysburg, and this is pretty much the end of their season, no matter what. It's kind of like Greer School. If that was if we were talking about basketball playoffs, they can't go anywhere to the state playoff level or anything. So this is their championship game.
And Holliesburg's prepping for Central Mountain, which they will play the following week and Central Mountain plays Jersey Shore this week. Jersey Shore is really good this year. And then our final thing here, our stat of the week before we get to our cool name segment, which Coach Black is a big fan of. He said it off camera. Hopefully Dan has it on file. We can use it against him someday. Stat of the week. Yeah, do your whole math equation PowerPoints presentation.
Well, it's just a really interesting situation in 2A because you got Cambria Heights, who right now leads Bellwood by 100 PowerPoints, and Bellwood has a game which they should win against Claysburg this week. If they win that, that'll get them 90 points, and then Claysburg's won 4 games, so that will get them enough points to pass them if Cambria Heights does not win this week against Windber. Now, the question is, do they want to pass them? Because there's a chance that Forest Hills could end up being the number 8 seed, and that is an extremely tough game for whoever the number 1 seed is, because Forest Hills and Damon Crawley have been playing really well the past couple weeks. They beat Chestnut Ridge this year.
And Cambria. Right?
Yeah, and they've had some really nice wins. And the other thing is Richland could end up being the number 4 seed. So the number 1 seed might have to play Forest Hills in the first round and then Richland in the second round in the semis. So it's still all up in the air. Richland could still move up to number 3. Forest Hills could move up to number 7. So it's still a little bit up in the air, but it's just such an interesting situation there in 2A.
And I bet you if you look in the Monday Morning Mirror next week, you'll have something in explaining all of that and what it's going to go on it. Not to give ourselves an extra plug.
All right, so I thought it would be neat to add another stat of the week that I found on the way in. So I'm looking at Windber and their offense, and I know just how good they were when we played against them. What do you think they're averaging yards per carry?
They're like 8.9 yards per carry.
You have a guess?
No, I don't know. I haven't seen Windber yet this year.
So they're averaging 11 yards a carry, and that's that's not just a small sample size. That's 300 and some carries on the season. And then what you got to think about is a lot of times their starters have been out by halftime. So even their younger guys that are coming in are doing that in the second half on people. But 11 yards per carry, I've been telling some people I think it might be the best offense that I've ever gone against. And I think that might support that claim. You play 8 games and you're still averaging 11 yards a carry. That's pretty remarkable.
See, now I want to see them play Central now. Even if it's a preseason scrimmage game next year.
All right.
Somebody needs to organize that game, ADs at those schools. Just now that you got me curious.
Windber could end up in the Laurel Highlands Conference. You never know.
Are we breaking as a scoop? Maybe, anyway. But before we go, real quick, this is the part where Mike will become disinterested, and hopefully Coach here likes the cool names thing. But this week's cool names segment. We're going to go with Phillipsburg Osceola and Moshannon Valley. Phillipsburg Osceola, Jacody Jones. Not Jacoby Jones or Jacob Jones, Jacody. He's a sophomore running back linebacker. And then my favorite one that jumped out at me, I didn't believe I didn't see this earlier, Mo Valley. This is a very rugged sounding name. Nikolai Hansel. Hansel? Kind of like Hansel and Gretel. Nikolai, and you have to say it like that. Hansel. He's a senior offensive lineman, defensive lineman, and his picture's in our mirror preview. He's a big guy, too. So there's our names. Next week it'll be playoff time. So I don't know if we're going to still do playoff names. But Coach actually was going to come up with some names here. Did you have anyone, like anybody you played with in high school whose name you thought, wow, he would have been a good name? Anybody jump out at you right now?
Oh, I threw it out the window. I thought I was getting to replace you today, and I showed up.
Yeah, there was. I go on vacation tomorrow, but I was so happy that Mike was back. I thought, you know what, Buck, Neil, make me work one more day before I go on vacation.
How about you think about that? Buck Frank.
Yeah. Yeah. See, but I've known him my whole life, so
that's
it's really never
good name for a sports reporter.
I didn't know if there was like some name,
especially
like
if he's doing the outdoors page.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty tough.
Like if you had a kid on your team named Rocco or Buzz.
We did have a Rocky. He didn't play football,
but nobody named Buzz or anything like that, or Fuzzy or something like that. There's a guy from Holliesburg named Fuzz Frazier. He wrestled in high school in Holliesburg in the 80s. But again, let's thank Coach Black for. Hey, I didn't bring up any junior high names. Let's thank Coach Black for coming in and being our guest this week. Thanks to Dan behind the camera.
Let's ask Coach Black. Do you think junior high results ever have a role in varsity results later?
Because don't you think it built a winning attitude at the junior high level? I think that should carry.
If a team plays another team in 8th grade,
oh yeah, that's when I.
What does that mean? They're going to beat them in varsity because they beat them in 8th grade?
Because I said Altoona beat us all 3 years at Holliesburg, 7th, 8th, 9th grade. So I worried about beating them in 12th grade, and I was right.
Okay, so junior high, I think it's got us. I do think there's something to junior high. But I heard this guy on here talking about youth football the one night.
Heifa. The Heathers Cup.
I saw your response to that. He was talking about a game.
It was Westmont Hilltop, 6th grade.
Playing against
Westmont
Holliesburg.
Hilltop crushed us. I said it was like 40-6.
But I know it's translated, at a lot of these schools that have good junior high programs in 7th and 8th grade with good, consistent coaches. It does translate into helping your varsity program out. So.
I feel like I won
that.
I feel like I won
right.
Yeah, but you're wearing an Illinois hat.
I'd
So.
say
I'm going to have to head out to Lloydsburg and check out the kindergarten class and see how they're throwing.
Well, what grade's
football.
your son in? Let's give your son a shout out here.
He's in 5th grade.
5th grade. He'll be a few. You'll get to coach.
He's
your
playing
son
in the
there.
Heathers Cup this
See,
week.
the Heathers Cup's a big deal to elementary
Yeah.
football around here. So anyways, but again, we're going to say goodbye because I think we're going to go longer than one of those JF Kennedy assassination documentaries. For Garry Black, for Mike Boyden, for Dan Eisenberg, I'm Scott Franco. Thanks for watching.